Politics Nation with Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Ed, and thanks to you for tuning in. I'm live tonight from Washington, D.C. Tonight's lead, an amazing day in the so-called loud music murder trial that's reignited the debate about stand your ground. 7 months after George Zimmerman was acquitted in the killing of Trayvon Martin, saying he was in fear of his life, Florida's controversial stand your ground law, a law that you can use deadly force if you feel threatened, is back in the national spotlight. This case began one evening in November 2012 at a gas station in Jacksonville, Florida. Michael Dunn got into an argument about loud music with 4 teenagers sitting inside a parked SUV. Dunn fired 10 shots at the vehicle. One of the teens, 17-year-old Jordan Davis, died at the scene. Michael Dunn is charged with first-degree murder. He says the killing was in self-defense and that the teen threatened him with a gun. But so far, no gun has been found. What this all comes down to is, will the jury believe him? He claims there was a gun, but no one else testified to that. Today, in a riveting courtroom moment, he took the stand himself. For over 3 hours, he gave dramatic testimony, and at times he broke down, wiping away tears. Here's what he says happened after he asked the teenagers in the SUV to turn down their music.
He says, yeah, I'm gonna kill you. I look, and I'm looking at a barrel. He's showing me a gun, and he's threatening me. He said he was gonna effing kill me, but after he opened the door, then he looked at me and said, you're dead.
And were you still sitting there in shock?
Yes, I was.
Were you still in fear for your life?
I became even more fearful at that point.
Okay. At that point, what did you believe was about to happen to you?
I thought I was gonna be killed.
Did you even think he might even be able to get a shot off?
Yes, I did.
Then he demonstrated for the jury what he says happened next.
If you could you show the jury exactly what you did when you heard it's going down now?
Well, if we say over here is my glove box, I'm looking out the window, and I said, you're not gonna kill me, you son of a and I shot.
The stand your ground law means that the burden is on the prosecutors to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Dunn was not in fear and that there was no gun in the SUV. And that's where they focus their cross-examination of Dunn.
Let's talk about what this, what you saw was. As you sit here today, what is it now?
It was a shotgun.
It's a shotgun. Okay, what did you tell the sheriff's officer it was?
I told him it was a shotgun.
Didn't you tell him it was either a barrel or a stick?
Yes, I did. And this is after the police telling me there is no weapon recovered at the car or the scene, and me believing the police are competent and able to search the whole area. So by process of elimination, it's like some kind of industrial object, a pipe, something that looked very much like a barrel. No doubt in my mind that that was a weapon, that that was a firearm. But the doubt came in when the police started telling me that they didn't recover anything at the car or the scene. But as we've learned, they didn't check the scene.
And but you said at that time it could have been a stick.
Yeah, and again, 2 hours of sleep, I misspoke. I mean, a stick doesn't really do justice to it. Picture anything that looks like a barrel.
The detective said at some point, is it possible it was your imagination? And you said yes.
No, I did not. I started to say that anything is possible, but not likely. And it certainly wasn't my imagination that he came out of the car.
Dunn's fiancee, Rhonda Rower, was with him the night of the shooting and in the hours after. At the time of the shooting, she was inside the gas station's convenience store, and she was back in the car with him when they drove away from the scene. The prosecution wanted to know what he told her about the shooting.
You love Rhonda Rower,
Yes, sir, I do.
right? You love her a lot, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you loved her back then, correct?
I love her today.
November 23rd, 2012, you were in love with her.
Yes, sir.
You cared about her.
Yes, sir.
Right, and when she got into that car, she asked you what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
And you told this jury, you explained it to her, right?
Yes, I did.
And she, as you said, was a wreck, right?
Yes, she was.
Because she knew that you had just fired into a car with human beings inside.
She doesn't understand self-defense, but you are right. She was very upset over what I had done.
Right, right. And so you guys were together for 3 miles and she was hysterical?
Crying, yes.
Right. You did not tell her during that 3 miles anyone pointed any weapon at you, did you?
I think I did. I think I was very clear that they threatened my life. I was very clear that they came out of their car advancing upon me. And whether she comprehended what I was saying, I couldn't say.
My question was, did you tell her they had a weapon of any kind?
Yes, I did.
You did. What did you tell her? To tell the jury the term that you used to describe the weapon.
I don't know what I said, but I told her that they had a weapon, they threatened my life, and he advanced upon me.
Well, how'd you describe the weapon? Did you say they had a sword? Did you say they had a machete?
Gun.
A gun. You used the word gun with Rhonda Rower.
Yes, I did.
When?
Multiple times.
You telling this jury that on the way back to the hotel, you told Rhonda Rower that the boys in the car had a gun.
If I told her on the way to the hotel, I told her several times at the hotel, I told her several times on the way home that this was self-defense.
That wasn't my question.
Well, the whole conversation revolved around gun, threat. They came out of the car at me, so it wasn't just they had a gun, because when he just had a gun, I didn't shoot him. It wasn't until he made specific threats and got out of his car and came after me.
Okay,
So all of that was part of the conversation.
All right. From the time you left the gate station to the time you got back to the Sheraton, how many times did you use the word gun to describe what the boys, let me finish, what the boys in the car had?
I couldn't tell you.
Was it more than one?
At least one.
But in a surprise twist, prosecutors called his fiancee back to the stand. And then in a dramatic courtroom moment, she fought back tears as she contradicted her fiance's testimony.
On November 23rd, 2012, after the shooting, when you came out of the gate gas station and you got into the defendant's car,
Yes.
did the defendant ever tell you he saw a gun in that red SUV?
No.
Did the defendant ever tell you that he saw a weapon of any kind in that SUV?
No.
There was no mention of a stick.
No.
There was no mention of a shotgun.
No.
There was no mention of a barrel.
No.
There was no mention of a lead pipe.
No.
Back in the hotel room, Ms. Rower, that same night, did the defendant ever tell you that he saw the boys with a firearm?
No.
Did he ever tell you that he saw the boys with a weapon?
No.
On the 2-hour drive back to Brevard the following morning, did the defendant ever tell you that he saw a gun in the SUV?
No.
And on that 2-hour drive, did he ever tell you he saw a weapon of any kind in that SUV?
No.
May I have a moment?
The witness testimony is now complete. The jury will hear closing arguments tomorrow. If convicted, Dunn faces up to life in prison. Joining me now is Florida criminal defense lawyer Ken Padowitz and former prosecutor Faith Jenkins. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, a dramatic day of testimony. What's your reaction to what we saw?
Well, I think when Mr. Dunn took the stand, his testimony was brilliant. He went on about his defense and how he was in fear and how he saw a weapon. It was brilliant, brilliant. The only problem, Reverend, is that his fiancée got on the stand and basically said he was a liar, and basically took away his credibility with the jury. So this brilliant testimony by the defendant went poof like a shooting star, up in smoke, in my opinion. That jury, credibility is everything to that jury. And here in a self-defense case, Mr. Dunn basically had his credibility go down the drain with the testimony of his fiancée. So I think the prosecution is in a great position in this case.
Faith, your views on what happened today?
I mean, here you have Rhonda Rower, right, his fiancée. She loves him. She doesn't want to see him go to jail. She doesn't want to see him get into trouble. She obviously doesn't want to be there on the witness stand. And she comes in and she's sort of reluctantly telling the jury what the real truth is. And it's minutes after Michael Dunn looks in the jury's eyes and tells them they had a gun, they had a weapon, they were threatening me with their life. Because what better way to bolster his testimony that he was in fear for his life than to put a gun in Jordan Davis's hands? But the fact is, that night, what happened that night, the minutes after he shot and killed Jordan Davis, he's with his fiancée for hours after that incident. He never, ever mentions that they pointed a weapon at him. And now the jury know he was absolutely lying.
Now, Ken, the key here is the credibility, as you said, of Dunn, the defendant. And the entire defense centers around whether there was a gun or any kind of weapon, for that matter, in the teen's car. In an exchange today, the defense attorney seems to be laying blame on the police work after the shooting, asking Dunn about the police interview he did. Listen to this.
Did he tell you if we found any gun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he even tell you if we found a water gun that was painted black, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Were you under the assumption that they actually searched the plaza for a gun?
I was.
Were you under the assumption that they actually searched the bushes for a gun?
I was.
Were you actually under the assumption that they checked dumpsters that night for a gun?
I was.
Did they ever convey to you in your interrogation that nothing was ever checked in the area when they told you, we never found a gun?
They did not.
Well, Ken, will the jury buy this?
Well, it's a good tactic that the defense attorney has to use in this case. He has to try to poke holes in the investigation by the police, or lack thereof, to try to show that there was an opportunity for there to have actually been a weapon, there to have been a gun, and that it was disposed of by the other individuals in the car. The problem here is, again, it rests on credibility of the defendant. Even after we focus on the police investigation, the defendant not saying anything to his fiancée the day driving away, not calling the police, driving away back to the hotel, not saying anything to his fiancée about a gun at the hotel, and the next day driving home and not saying anything about a gun. That's going to undermine the good points that the defense attorney made in front of that jury. So I think it was the right thing for the defense to do, but I think it's going to go, again, down the tube because of the testimony by the fiancé that Mr. Dunn never said anything about a weapon.
And here's another problem with that. Here's another problem with that. If he had called the police or stayed at the scene or called 911 and made a report in that moment of the alleged gun, they could have looked for a gun at the scene, but he didn't. They didn't know that there was this alleged gun in the hands of Jordan Davis and his friends until the next day when the police called him and made him come in and surrender himself. So the fact that there was time for these teens to hide a gun, in part because he fled, he's able to benefit from his fleeing and say, well, the police didn't do their job, when in fact they didn't even know to look because he didn't stay to tell them.
I'm going to ask you to hold it right there, Faith. Ken, please stay with us. More on the Michael Dunn trial coming up, including a police tape played in court today that surprised everyone. Plus, Chris Christie leaves New Jersey, but he can't leave behind questions about the bridge scandal.
Does the GW Bridge situation impact your ability to execute on those priorities for the state?
I'm shocked you brought that up.
Serious questions tonight about whether Christie's office will actually cooperate with investigators. Also, a big win for President Obama. He stood up to the Tea Party and they blinked. We'll tell you what happened. Stay with us.